Hi, welcome back to my channel and another pen review video. So if you've watched my pen organising video, you may recognise this. Now my friend Alice made this for me when I first set up Blink like 4 years ago. I feel super grateful I have supportive friends like that. This is what my old logo looked like when I first started, and that was my first bit of calligraphy really. And now I can look at it and it's cringe, but I absolutely love this pen holder because it brings back memories and shows how much I've developed. But anyway, enough about the pen holder. It's what's inside the pen holder that we're going to chat about today. So let's just unwrap it and flip it open. So this is where I store my Faber-Castell PITT Artist Pens. And these are some pens that I've had for years. I think my husband may have bought them for me as a birthday gift, like when I first started calligraphy. They aren't the cheapest of pens, so it was really sweet of him to get them for me, and again, really lovely that he is so supportive along with my friends. I'm going to stop flapping this around now. So that's basically the pen I'm going to be reviewing today. So let's cut the rambling and dive right in and see what these pens are like. Okay, so I got all my lovely pens here. I've got my trusty Rhodia dot pad. But before we dive into playing with these pens, let's have a look at the barrel and see what they are like. Okay, so if we have a little look at the barrel first, it says on here, Faber-Castell PITT Artist Pen. And then here's the colour, so this is orange glaze, and it's also got a number next to it, which is 113. I'm not sure what those 3 asterisks are about. And then under here, it has a few different languages, but basically it says India ink, waterproof, and maximum light fastness. Now, what's great about these pens is because they are India ink and they're waterproof, it means that you can use them on top of watercolour backgrounds and the pen doesn't bleed, which is great. It also means that you can write with it first and then add watercolour on top. And again, the pen won't bleed, which is a massive bonus if you're trying to do a bit of a mixed media piece with some watercolour painting, but you still want some really sharp calligraphy. Now you can see here and then also on the lid, there's this letter B, and that basically stands for brush. These Faber-Castells actually also come as a fine tip pen, which come in various different sizes. So similar to your Pigma Micron pens, it will have the size on here and here, but these are the brush tip. So let's have a little look at the brush tip. Please ignore the pen I have all over my hands. I just constantly have pen on my hands. So as you can see, this tip is actually quite small. Let's grab a Tombow and a Pentel and just compare them. So as you can see, if we compare all of these pens together, it's much closer in size to the Pentel than it is to the Tombow. However, it is similar to the Tombow where the whole end is a fibre tip, whereas the Pentel is encased in this kind of metal, which makes the tip quite short. So although it's quite thin, it is still quite a long brush tip. But I definitely say this is more of a smaller tip than a larger tip. Now, I always say that smaller tip pens are a lot easier to write with, especially for beginners. So let's see how this tip works and how flexible it is. Okay, so for this bit, I'm going to use this colour, which is called Middle Purple Pink. It's a very original name there. It's number 125. I'm not actually sure how many colours there are of these pens. That's something I'll have a little look up. Okay, let's go in and write the word hello. So can you see the nib is actually super flexible, like the whole thing is bending. And my upstrokes are actually quite thick. I do have a feeling though that I've used this particular colour quite a lot of times, so it might have made the pen a little bit softer. Let's pick a colour that I probably haven't used as much, and let's be realistic. That's going to be the brown because nobody ever uses brown. However, this is not called brown, this is called Caput Mortem, which again, interesting name. And you can see actually the nib does look a bit tidier. So I haven't used this one as much, but the nib is still quite flexible. It's actually quite interesting. Normally with brush pens, you find that it flexes in like the middle there. Whereas I don't know if you can tell with this, it's actually flexing more towards the base. So the whole nib is flexing rather than just the tip. So that does mean that even though it is quite a small tipped pen, it does make really thick lines. Also, because it is quite flexible, doing those thin upstrokes, they are relatively thick considering the size of the nib. And I think that's just because of how tapered this nib is. I think if I use it, so that's interesting. If I use it slightly more upright, then it is much easier to get those thin strokes compared to if I use it at the normal 45-degree angle that I suggest people use it at. So if I had to write hello a little bit more upright, you can see that my thin upstrokes are definitely a lot thinner. I personally find it a lot harder to control a pen in this upright angle, so I probably wouldn't normally write like this. So I think with these pens, it's more just accepting the fact that the nib is quite flexible. For this reason, I would say it might be a little bit trickier for beginners to use, just because it is a little bit flexible. These also react in a similar way to the Tombow dual brush pens, that if you use them on a rough surface, then they are really likely to fray. The nibs aren't that durable, especially with how flexible they are. You can see how the nib could fray really quickly. That's actually really mad that it bends so close to the base of the pen rather than halfway. There aren't many brush pens that bend like that, so it's really intriguing that it does bend like that. Anyway, I think we've had enough of that brown colour for a while. Let's have a go with blending. So I'm pretty sure you can blend these pens, so I'm just going to give it a go with these two colours because they're a similar shade to each other. So this colour is sky blue, and then this one is phthalo blue. I have no idea how to say that. Phthalo blue? Phthalo blue? Yeah, we're going to go with that. And that is number 110, and this one is 146. So I'm just going to write the word, let's just write the word hey. Keep it simple. And I'm just going to go with the light colour. And I think what I can do is go over the top with this darker colour. And then if I go back in with the light colour, I think I'll be able to blend them together. Oh, so that does work quite well actually. I think this works well because they are similar colours. I think it would be quite hard to blend when they are quite different colours. But that has worked quite well. You can see if I'm going over the light colour, there is a bit of kind of bleeding marks, but that's not worked too badly. I'm going to give it a go testing out my traditional way of blending, which is tip-to-tip blending. I'm a little bit nervous doing this because I don't know if it will ruin it because they are India ink, but let's just give it a go. So you can see the blues pulled through a little bit, but not massively. I wonder if I use the blue. Oh, that's worked much better. So you can see the pink has gone onto the blue a little bit. However, they're not the best pens for tip-to-tip blending. I think because these are India ink rather than just traditional water-based ink, it does make it a little bit hard to blend. However, I do really like this part of the E here. That's blended really nicely. I think if I were looking to blend some pens together, these probably wouldn't be my go-to pens to blend. However, that is totally possible, and I do really like how these blues are blended together. I think they'd be great for adding shading for a variety of different colours rather than blending two really contrasting colours. Okay, now time for my favourite part, the swatching. And as I've discovered from just doing this video, some of these pens have really interesting names. I've had these pens for like years and never really paid attention to the colours. And so I'm going to write all the names of the colours for the swatch test. So I couldn't fit all of the colours on one sheet of paper, so I've done 2 sheets, and I really like these colours. Like I said, I haven't used these pens in ages just because they've been tucked away, and they are really lovely and beautiful. I absolutely love this name, Pale Geranium Lake. I'm not sure what a pale geranium lake is, but I like this colour. In general, I absolutely love this whole colour palette. I love how contrasting the two blues are. This is almost like a grey blue, and again how contrasting the greens are too. This is quite an interesting one because it is red, but actually it's come out like a kind of pinky red rather than a bright red like the barrel suggests. I do really like this grey as well. I assume they have other cold greys because this one does have a 3 on it after the cold grey. The colours are super pigmented, and actually I think because it is India ink rather than a water-based ink, you can't really see where the joins are for each of the drills, which is really nice. If I hold this a bit closer, you might be able to see. What I do love, and something you can especially see on this blue, is there's quite a nice gradient where you push down on the pen and it brings out a lot more of the ink, and then it goes into a bit of a lighter version of that colour, and I really love that effect. Also, the pens aren't bleeding at all on this paper, and it doesn't really show through either, which is a bonus. So it's perfect for things like bullet journaling and things like that. As you can see, the words are quite chunky just because of how flexible the pen is. It's a little bit harder to do those thin upstrokes compared to the thick downstrokes. However, I do really love the look that it creates. So if you are looking for a brush pen that gives you a bit more of a chunkier feel when you're doing calligraphy, I really recommend these pens. However, because the nib flexes in a slightly weird way and doing it right from the base, I'd say that if you're a beginner, you might struggle a little bit with just getting used to how these work. I remember these were some of the first brush pens I ever bought, and I did struggle with them for a little while, I think, but I did get used to them in the end. Even if you're experienced, you may find these pens do feel a little bit different compared to other brush pens, so it might take a little bit of getting used to. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'm intrigued to see who else has these pens. I mean, to be fair, you probably wouldn't be watching it if you did have these pens because you'd know what these pens are like. But let me know in the comments if you have heard of these pens before, because I don't really see these get used too often on Instagram in like the general calligraphy community. So I'm intrigued to see who has heard of these, but they're one of my first pens and I absolutely love them. Like I said, because of the nib, they are a little bit tricky to use, but I think if you're looking for something a little bit different, something with a smaller nib that can create some chunky lettering, then this is definitely the pen for you. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description below so you can get your hands on these pens too. And also, could you let me know what other pens you'd like me to review or any other art supplies? Because that would massively help me out. I want to create these reviews for you guys so you know exactly what pens to get and what pens to avoid. I know especially when you're a beginner it can be a little bit daunting figuring out what the best supplies are. So yeah, if you could let me know what pens you'd love me to review or any other things as well, like paints or brushes, then let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. As you can see, I've got a fair few pens behind me that I can test out, but I'm always willing to get my hands on some other pens so I can test them out for you guys before you have to buy them yourself. So if there's any new pens coming out, then let me know too. I'm always keeping an eye out for new pens, but if I've missed any, then let me know. If you found this video helpful, then make sure you give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you do want to see more pen reviews from me and other videos too. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!